Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. It really does help when you do that. So today folks, welcome to the end of month Q&A video for November 2021. Now this month on YouTube has been absolutely crazy. Viewing figures have been through the roof and we've had so many comments come in. So I've had to be very selective again as to which ones I feature, but we've got a lot of new faces today in the Q&A. So that's always a nice thing. So let's see who is up first. Bandit Sharp. Hello Joe, too late for this month I know, but I have a question I wish to put to you. It concerns when does an analogue pedal cease to become truly analogue? An Italian boutique pedal manufacturer who markets his product as handmade and analogue recently sold me a faulty pedal. Upon his own admission during the repair process, microprocessors are used in part of the circuitry. I'm no electronics whiz kid, but I presume by the presence of this processor his claim to analogolimity ceases to be the case. Strymon rightfully declared their analog-digital-analog signal path in their Sunset and Riverside, but are we being misled by a claim to analog when there are microprocessors on the PCB? Sorry if this is a little long-winded, but I hope you catch my drift. Cheers, man. It's a tricky question, isn't it? Now, for me, I would say an all-analog pedal is exactly that. No digital components anywhere in the entire pedal. But then you kind of get into the realm of things like the Chase Bliss pedals, for example. I think most, if not all of them, are fully analog pedals in terms of their signal path, and there's no conversion going on. But it's that kind of analog heart, digital brain type concept where you have microprocessors controlling certain elements and the mapping and the routing and all that sort of stuff. So is that an all analog pedal? It is in terms of signal path, but not in terms of components. And something on my pedal board, you know, I'm the king of all analog, I suspect, I don't know for sure on this, maybe someone can tell me, the Fairfield Meat Maud analog delay, that is definitely a BBD delay, and that's a whole other debate in itself. People dispute whether Bucket Brigade chips are analog or partly digital, whether they fall somewhere in the middle. So that's a whole different debate. I would say BBDs are analog personally, but I think that is definitely a sort of dark analog delay in its kind of nature. But the modulation circuit in there has an element of kind of random modulation. And I'm assuming the only way to get a random modulation would be to have some sort of digital processor feeding random control voltages to the delay, because I don't think there would be a way in the analog world, or the all-analog world, to create a random modulation. It's quite mechanical-like, so you get that naturally in something like a tape delay, but in a Bucket Brigade sort of device, you're reliant on control voltages. So I would imagine that's an all-analog delay in terms of signal path, but probably not an all-analog delay pedal, if that makes any sense. So it's an interesting debate for sure. I would say if he's marketing it as all analog, it shouldn't have any microprocessors in there. If it is an analog delay, you can market it as that if it is an analog delay, but you should probably say that it has some sort of digital control circuitry in it. So it's a tricky question. I don't know the answer, to be honest, but for me, an all analog pedal is a pedal with zero digital components whatsoever, regardless of whether any conversion is taking place. Frank Booth. Crazy to think how lucky those old companies got with their formulas in the beginning, considering all the modern tech we have, and we still can't beat original Fender/Gibson stuff. And that was talking about the ThroBak SLE-101 PAFs in this guitar here. Another question about this guitar later on, which is why I've got it out. And yeah, I think that's very true. And I think there was a lot of luck in those old sounds, like the materials they had available, and how they combined them really kind of worked. And when you get into companies like ThroBak, you get into the carbon content of the steel pole screws and whether a different carbon content makes a difference to the treble response and all that sort of crazy nerdy stuff. But I do also think there's an element of familiarity when it comes to those old bits of gear, because those are the pickups that we have essentially grown up listening to, so we're very familiar with them. So anything modern will sound by definition less familiar, and we'll probably like it less because it's new and uncomfortable to kind of get to grips with. So I think there's definitely an element of sort of nostalgia and, you know, just knowing those tones and having become so sort of synonymous with the music we love. Anything that isn't that is weird and we don't like it, but at first anyway, unless you're into kind of like modern metal stuff and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think, you know, there was a lot of sort of luck that happens back then, and, you know, lots of companies go to ridiculous lengths to try and recreate those old tones, ThroBak being one. So yeah, I think there was a lot of sort of luck back then, but anyway, I think the familiarity plays into it too. Ryan Flynn, anyone know what battery life is like if putting one in a fuzz? Now, this is a sort of very general statement, and I'm talking here largely about like very traditional fuzzers, fuzz faces, tone benders, big muffs, things like that. Generally, fuzz pedals have a crazy low current draw, and usually in kind of modern recreations, the biggest current draw in a fuzz pedal is the LED, not the fuzz circuit itself. They're typically incredibly low. So if you get something like an Analog Man Sun Face that doesn't have an LED, it probably has like a 2 milliamp current draw compared to like a digital pedal of like 500 milliamp current draw or more. So if you put a battery in a traditional old school fuzz, even if you don't unplug the input jack to save the battery, it'll probably last you a good few weeks, I would have thought. But that it does vary. That's a very sort of general sort of statement. Rock and Jazza. Oh yeah, best together. And this is when I ran my JTM 45 head alongside my orange Retro 50 head. I made sort of a video comparing the two and those sounds that were synonymous with those and getting the right speakers. And then I just ran them both together and just dimed them and nearly knocked the wall down. But yeah, they do sound absolutely spectacular together. They just kind of fill in. They have slightly different EQs. They're both British. They both have that sort of classic rock sound, but they just kind of slot together and just fill everything out. Sounds absolutely magical. So yes, both together is correct. Mark Pickard. Good video with good examples. How about a treble booster before/after overdrive or distortion? Thanks very much. And this is when I was talking about the problem of having a Rangemaster type treble booster and a fuzz face type pedal. Which order should you put them in if you're going to run them both together? Because both want to be first in line because they both rely on having a high impedance input, and putting one after the other by definition lowers the impedance, so the second pedal will misbehave. So which order should you put them in? With overdrive and distortion pedals, they are much less susceptible to problems because they don't rely on having a high impedance input. So I would always put the treble booster into the overdrive because that kind of simulates what they would have been typically used for, which is into a cooking amp. So you will probably run into 1% of the problems doing that than you would putting it into a fuzz pedal. But that said, every sound has its place, I think. So if it works for you having your overdrive pedal with a Rangemaster after it, it'll probably be very bright, very nasally. The cleanup won't necessarily work as well, but if that's the sound that works for you for a particular guitar part in a song, that's the sound to go for. So there are no rules, but in 99% of circumstances, I would always put the treble booster into an overdrive or distortion pedal. Matt Warren. I like the 75Hz better here because it had more of that upper mid definition that I like, but I can definitely see the appeal of the 55Hz version. It's one of those things where even though it's only a small difference, it's a small difference that can matter a lot to us as guitarists. And that is exactly the point of pretty much every video I put out on this channel. We are talking like 1% differences between certain bits of gear, but those 1% matter a lot to us as sort of nerdy tone-chasing guitarists. And also if you have 10 pieces of gear that have a 1% difference, that's a 10% difference, and that's something you will notice. So I firmly believe that every single piece of your signal chain makes a difference. Even if you can swap a guitar lead out and not really notice much, if anything at all, if you do that 10 times throughout your rig, you will. So yeah, absolutely. I think we're talking subtle differences, and that was a video comparing the 55 to the 75Hz cones in Celestion heavy magnet greenbacks, and looking at, if you're getting a speaker made for you, which of the cones should you go for? Subtle differences. The 55 was a bit thicker, the 75 had a little bit more kind of honk to the mid-range on it, but they were very, very close. It's not like one is sort of night and day different. Jay Curtin. Great comparison between the two on the same video. I'm glad I purchased the 55Hz. Derek has some left at Watford Valves if you're in the UK and StewMac if you're in the USA, because those heritage series of Celestion speakers have been discontinued, so you can't buy them kind of new anymore apart from shops that have existing stock. And I bought mine from Hot Rocks here in the UK not too long ago, so they still have a few items left from that heritage series if you're looking for them in the UK. So you can still get them if you can go to the right places, but they are getting kind of harder to find as stock sells out. Bill Gaber. I heard quite a difference. I'm confident that in a mix, the 75Hz would be my favourite, but otherwise the 55 sounded more full. My guitarist is building a 2x12, and as his engineer, I'd like one of each, but he's going with Celestion Creambacks. I noticed that you chose series wiring over parallel. I presume the orange could handle 4, 8 or 16 ohm loads, so this could be a good topic for the next Q&A, please. Actually, the orange amp is the reason I have chosen series wiring over parallel, because my Dr. Z amps, the ZREC and the DB4, they have 4, 8 and 16 ohm taps on them. But the Marshall amp too, the orange and the Marshall, they only have 8 or 16. And I pretty much exclusively have 8 ohm speakers here, not for any particular reason, that's just what I've ended up with. So I can wire a 2x12 at either 4 ohms in parallel or 16 ohms in series. So if I wired it in parallel at 4 ohms, I could only use my 2 Dr. Z's into that cab. Having it at 16, I can use almost every amp I own into that cabinet, and it just makes it so much easier for sort of swapping between. I don't have to keep rewiring the cabinet every time I want to change a head over. So that's why I went with the 16 ohm series wiring. To be honest, if I had a choice and it made no difference to anything, I'd probably choose parallel, but that's just my preference. But series does sound 99% exactly the same, and sounds great. So that's why I went with 16. Manuel Rays, I think. How come I've never found this channel before? Subbed. Thank you. Great video. I was just struggling between an exotic RC booster and a Big Muff Nano. This vid gave me the core basics of what was happening with my tone. Cheers. And this is the same video talking about, I think this was a different video actually, talking about fuzz and buffers and how having a buffered signal going into a fuzz or a treble booster can cause problems. Yeah, and exactly in a subsequent comments that I was chatting with Manuel, he was saying that he had the RC booster going into the Big Muff and it was changing the tone, switching them around created a lot less difference because you have the fuzz first in line giving it a high impedance guitar signal, and even though it drops the impedance, the RC booster doesn't really care what impedance it has, so it was sounding much better doing it like that. The Big Muff is actually one of the least susceptible fuzzers to having a low impedance signal. It does become a little bit brighter, but it doesn't go absolutely haywire like a treble booster or a range master or a tone bender or a fuzz face does. So Big Muffs are a lot less susceptible, but as Manuel found, it was creating a difference, so switching the two worked for him, which is fantastic. Insomnian. Hi Joe, I've recently started watching and want to learn guitar. Brilliant. But I don't want to spend too much money on one. Do you have any suggestions for beginner guitars? It's been a long time since I looked at beginner guitars, but I think the two things I would say is, firstly, buy secondhand, because you can probably get a guitar that's ultimately worth, even though it's not brand new, probably 40% more money, so it might play better and sound better if you buy secondhand rather than buying new. So I buy almost everything I ever buy secondhand for that exact reason. You can get better gear for less money, even though it's not brand new out of the box. And the second thing I would say is look at the guitars that your heroes play. What sort of music are you into? Because there's no point if you're into jazz going out and buying a BC Rich Warlock. And if you're into heavy metal, there's no point going out and buying a jazz box. So look at which guitars your heroes play, because ultimately when we're starting out, we want to kind of feel like our heroes when we're holding a guitar. So if you're into Guns N' Roses, look at a sort of cheaper Les Paul style guitar. If you're into Tom Petty, look at a sort of cheaper Squier Telecaster or something like that. So buy the guitar that kind of fits the genre of music that you like to listen to and you ultimately want to sound like. But yeah, best of luck. You know, it's a tough job when you're just starting out, but play the music you love and kind of find gear that you really bond with, and you should be absolutely fine. So best of luck with that. Rafael Sanchez Fernandez. Hey Joe, great channel. Thank you. You need to make a review of the Jester. I haven't found any good videos reviewing this pedal properly, especially with the sizzle mod. You are the man. Thanks. Good. I'm glad I'm the man. And that's the pedal here. This is the Kingsley Jester with the sizzle mod. And I've had this for a good few months now. It's a phenomenal sounding pedal. I just haven't had the time to demo it yet. I've just been so ridiculously busy this year that I'm struggling to keep up to putting a video out every 4 days at the moment, if I'm honest. So this is kind of towards the top of my list of videos to make in the very near future. I would imagine I might have this demoed in the next 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. But yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. The Jester sizzle mod is on its way. Hey there. Hey there, hey there. Hey, I had a question for you. I'm not much of a pedal user since I live mostly in clean and distortion land with my amps directly. I don't tend to use much else. However, I've been toying with a compressor pedal and the idea of boosts, although if I truly need them, but I was curious. Can one push the front end of the amp too hard and damage it? If I tase the output of my pedals into my amps and push them too hard, is that something that can fry and overheat the amp? I have a Marshall and a few Black Stars. I've never had an issue with the Black Stars, but I've heard they can maybe overheat, but I don't know. In general, I've heard people warn about certain pedals with amps, and I've never had to consider this. The only time I ever boosted an amp to its limits was when I used to play a tiny crate with a metal zone off the full blast. So back then I didn't care. I feel I did smell the tubes working harder without me even trying to push the amp at all. So I wonder if there's a limit and how to know that limit. Now, this is an interesting question. I've never come across anybody having boosted their amp so hard it's damaged it. Because, especially if it's a tube amp, but transistors as well, when those tubes and transistors reach the limit of the sort of signal they can handle, they just clip the top of the signal off. That's overdrive and distortion. That's how that's created. It kind of hits the ceiling of what the amp can take. It runs out of headroom and it just kind of slices it off, and that's what creates distortion. So, whenever I've boosted an amp, you can kind of make the front end of the amp sort of like cave in, but that's the tubes just overloading. And as far as I'm aware, I've never heard of anyone damaging their amp by boosting it too hard. It could potentially be a different story if you're going into the effects loop return and kind of bypassing your preamp section and you're pushing the power section of your amp like harder than it's designed to. But again, the power tubes will probably just kind of chop the signal off and you'll get power amp distortion. So I've never heard of this, but if anybody has, drop it in the comments. It'd be really interesting to hear. There are definitely things you can do to an amp to kind of try and make it work harder than it's designed to and ultimately damage it. So if you connect a speaker of a lower impedance than the tap you're using, so let's say you use a 16 ohm tap and connect it to an 8 ohm speaker, for example, that will make the output transformer try to work harder than it's designed to work, and it will overheat and can damage it. But boosting into the front end, I've never come across that. Now in class, lots of guitars, but class A, B amps especially, the harder you push your power tubes, the quicker they will wear out. I believe in class A operation, and I'm a bit shaky on this, the tubes are kind of working flat out all the time. But in class A-B operation, the harder you push the output tubes, you'll wear them out quicker. So if you're using like an amp attenuator, for example, smashing the amp and then bringing it down to kind of bedroom volumes, you are wearing those tubes out pretty hard, even though you're not kind of using them for crazy volume in the room. So you will wear the tubes out quicker, but that's kind of normal. The harder you push an amp, the tubes wear out quicker. I don't think you can damage it, but as I said, any other thoughts, drop them in the comments. It'd be really interesting to hear. SG Lee. I just wanted to let you know that because of your videos, I purchased the same video from Williams Audio Mark II, and I absolutely love it. It's beautiful inside and out. It sounds incredible, amazing, work inside like a piece of art. Thank you for introducing me to this product. This is the Williams Audio Mark II tone bender. And when it comes to tone benders especially, every pedal Nick Williams makes is just astonishingly good. So yeah, they are like a work of art inside. So whenever I'm on something like the gear page and people are asking for tone bender recommendations, people are generally looking at those like actual solar sound ones that, what's the shop on, or used to be on Denmark Street? Can't remember, the one where the tone bender was kind of synonymous with. And people are always looking at those and they're like sort of £600-700 and things. The Williams Audio ones are only sort of £160, £170 maybe. So they're very affordable in the world of boutique handmade tone bender reproductions, but they are absolutely phenomenal. So I would always recommend looking at Williams Audio if you're in the market for a top quality handmade tone bender. Enrico Palazzo. It wouldn't be a Q&A without Enrico, would it? And the thing I really love about Enrico's comments is he gets lots of thumbs up from everybody. So I think people go to the comment section to see what Enrico said on my video. So I love that about Enrico. As a Gretsch player, I'm partial to the Filtertrons. The Ray butts have a lot of highs and lows and make it shine when clean, and also retains a lot of clarity no matter how much gain you use. Like you said, PAF has a lot more mids. At the edge of breakup, the Ray butts was the absolute winner. At low gain, they were similar. With the cranked amp, it was interesting. When you did the bending at the beginning, they were quite similar. Then you started to hear a difference. In this instance, there wasn't a clear winner because they sounded worlds apart. PAF had those singing harmonics that are just gorgeous, but the Ray butts had this almost fuzz face sound that was really cool. The Ray butts Filtertron had a lot of high ends, so when you're putting it into an overdriving amp, you do get that kind of like sizzly, abrasive high end that's very reminiscent of a fuzz, absolutely. But yeah, the Ray butts Filtertron, I think there's another question about this coming up. This is just the best Filtertron I've ever played. It is incredible. So if you're in the market for a sort of low output vintage correct Filtertron, that's where I would go. David Sharple, Filtertron or PAF? That's a question like, who do you love the most, daddy or mummy, in my mind. Both very different, but both phenomenal pickups. And I would generally use both for slightly different jobs. But as somebody else said in the comments, you combine a PAF with a Filtertron and you get AC/DC, which is exactly the point. You get those two sort of distinct sounds that are very old school, but just slot together amazingly well. So yes, it is like asking mummy or daddy. What Les Paul standard that is. This here, and I made a whole video about this that I'll link to up there, where this is the guitar I kept stock for the longest time, because this was my kind of darkness. I'm a big darkness fan, so a kind of Honeyburst Les Paul standard with that big, thick, bloated mid-range and high output was what I wanted this guitar for. But I found I was using it less and less over time, and it's just a wonderful sounding piece of wood, so I wanted to use it more. So this is a 1992 Honeyburst Les Paul standard that I've then upgraded. So it's got the ThroBak SLE-101 PAFs in it. It's got the 550K VI pots with the 50s wiring schematic, Lux Bumblebee capacitors, Faber hardware. So this is kind of my sort of 58 type guitar, but it obviously isn't. It's a very low cost version. It's not an R8 or anything, but it's a beautiful sounding guitar. And there is going to be a new song coming out hopefully next week. Maybe this week, I don't know yet. It's depending on a few things falling into place. I used this guitar just into the JTM45 for the lead in all of that, and it just sounds phenomenal. It has that vocal mid-range. People say that good PAFs sound like the human voice in that kind of sort of real articulate mid-range character, and that has it in abundance. So it's just a brilliant guitar. But it's not an R8 or anything like that. It's just a 90s Les Paul standard. Arlem Lightfinger. I think the SLE-101s are one of the closest replicas of an original PAF tone on the market today. Absolutely, they really are astonishing. I can get close with other manufacturers. I made a video comparing the ThroBaks to the Monties that you can get here in the UK. Subtle differences at most. They are pretty close, and I kind of preferred the Monties in certain guitars, so you can definitely get close to them, but the ThroBaks really are just amazing pickups. Really can't recommend them highly enough, even though they are cripplingly expensive. Why not talk like a pirate? Brilliant. So in terms of EQ, the Classic comes across a little warmer, a little more thud, a little more boomy on the low end, but for the effect itself, the Past Effects actually seems to get it across with a little more clarity, but very, very, very unusually close. Now, I can't, where is that pedal? It's on my shelf down there somewhere. This is the Past Effects Chorus Ensemble, and there's been a lot of love on forums recently for Past Effects, and they make some fantastic stuff. I think they've gone into the world of phasers now, and I think they do like a power booster, like a sort of colour sound overdrive, something like that. Really, really great, and they've been getting a lot of love recently, so definitely check them out. They make fantastic stuff from what I've been able to tell. I've got their chorus ensemble and the preamp crunch, I think it is, which is just the CE1 preamp in a box, which is brilliant as well, and I use that on recordings fairly often. So yeah, really, really great gear. Check out Past Effects. Yusuf Kasim, do you still have the ZREC, or the Dr. Z ZREC? Why did you stop playing it? I suggest selling it and getting the Dr. Z Z Master. I heard you're looking to get one, they sound amazing. I do still have the ZREC, and to be honest, I use it all the time. I haven't made too many videos with it recently, but off camera, and bear in mind you only see 1% of my guitar playing. Off camera, I use it all the time. I got to play guitar at an event shortly, and I'm taking the ZREC with me, and on the song that will be out soon, the ZREC is all over that. It's a phenomenal amp, so I use it all the time. On the subject of the Z Master, might want to check out for the video on the 4th of December. That's all I'll say for now. Bootle Gapples. I had an SC75 30-watt Scumnico that paired well with the reissue blue. The Scumnico was smoother, almost too smooth, whilst the reissue blue is hyper jangly. They balance each other out tonally in my AC30cc. The blue was louder, but the Scumnico moderated the sound and filled in the lower mids while producing nice extended sparkle. Nice, not unbalanced at all. Couldn't agree more. I really, really like, I mean, that's the Scumnico. I have the S75 PVC, which is a similar type thing, but a little bit different. The Scumbag speaker, it does divide opinion in the comment section. Some people absolutely adore it. Other people really don't like it. I think it's great. And this is the video comparing it to the Celestion Alnico Gold. They're definitely ballpark. The Gold has that kind of upper mid-range sort of to it that the Scumnico doesn't. It's more sort of flat. And the Scumbag S75 PVC, not the Scumnico, it is a slightly less efficient speaker. It's a few dB quieter, but it does have that kind of woody lower mid-range, and it pairs beautifully well with another speaker. And I've paired it with a few so far, and it sounds amazing. So paired with the Gold, that is my favourite combination for this sort of old school Alnico JTM45 sound. It's wonderful. So pairing it with other speakers, good job. Matt Warren. Hi Joe, I'm looking for some more vintage sounding filtrons for my 90s Duojet, which has unreasonably hot ceramic filtrons, which leave a lot to be desired. What are your thoughts on these Creamery Black Cats versus the TV Jones Ray Butts Full Fidelity? Are the TVJs worth the extra cost in your opinion, or is there not so much difference between them? So I had the Creamery Black Cats, and I had you can spec them up when you order them. I had them vintage output, so around sort of 4 DC resistance. I had them fully unwax potted, which the originals weren't, and the TV Jones isn't either. And I had them in my Gretsch Duojet. The TV Jones I've just got in my Grondland. I've only got the bridge pickup because it's a junior type guitar. To be honest, they are close. They are definitely sort of ballpark to each other. I did like the Creameries, and this is not to say the Creameries are bad in any way, shape or form. I really do recommend them if you're here in the UK, because they're brilliant pickups. For me, there is something about the TV Jones Ray Butts Full Fidelity that just kind of hits me here. And I don't really know what it is. Maybe it's confirmation bias, having spent a lot of money on it. It could be that. But there is just something magical about that pickup. And it could also be it pairing with my Grondland guitar. It might sound exactly the same as the Creameries did in my Gretsch. I've never tried it in there. So it's very guitar dependent and all that sort of stuff. For me, if I had to go out and buy a pair of Filtertron pickups tomorrow, I would go for the TV Jones. There was just something about them that I really, really like. And I think TV Jones are kind of the world-leading experts in Filtertron pickups. And they really do know their stuff. So, yeah, that's what I would do. But it's all personal preference. And as I said, the Creameries are not bad pickups at all. They're brilliant pickups. So if you're in the UK and the Creameries are a third of the price of importing sets of TV Jones, go for it. They are absolutely brilliant. There's a two slightly light-hearted comments to finish off this month. Quesadilla TV. There's people checking different capacitors of the same value, and there's me bypassing my faulty volume parts entirely so I don't have to bother soldering in a new one. Yeah, this channel won't be for everybody. You know, there's a lot of incredibly nerdy stuff on this channel. And, you know, one of the videos I tend to get the most hate for is comparing the 5-way switch in a Strat, comparing an Oak Grigsby to a CRL, I think it was, and listening to the sonic differences and the amount of like abuse you get on that. Of, you know, if you're listening to your Switch, you're not playing guitar, man, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the nerdier side of this channel won't be for everybody, and some people just want to kind of get on and play, and that's fantastic. But my content's there for people who are into my content. As I said, people land on this channel and very much get the wrong idea. And finally this month, Smedley Butler. You looked really excited when you play the tambourine. Who wouldn't? It's a tambourine. I love playing tambourine. Actually, on this new song, somebody else played tambourine, but I did play some sleigh bells on it, so I got to do a little bit of percussion. But tambourine's great fun to play on a recording, man. It's great. So, there we are. The end of the Q&A for November 2021. A lot to get through today, so a slightly longer Q&A video, but thank you so much for all of your comments this month. As I said, YouTube's been a little bit nuts, but yeah, if you're looking at the Dr. Z content we mentioned earlier, check out the video on the 4th of December. Something slightly new might be coming, may not. And there will be the song out soon. I will link to it up there as and when I have the link for it, so it might not be up there now if you're watching this video on release day. It'll be up there very, very soon. And as I said, it's kind of reliant on a few things falling into place. Bits of video footage and me getting the mix and master sorted and making the music video and all that sort of stuff. I'm aiming to get it out kind of as soon as I can in December. So it might be the 1st, might be the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, but I'm going to do it as soon as I realistically can. So watch this space. There will be a piece of new music coming because I haven't done any new music this entire year and I wanted to get something out before 2021 ends. So there we are, folks. Thank you for watching. Any more questions, drop them in the comments section. I will address them either typing them out or in next month's Q&A. I hope these videos are interesting and useful. I know a lot of people do like them, a few people don't, but they are pretty well watched. So thanks, folks, and I hope you're enjoying the run-up to the festivities of December, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.